Virtual Vision FM with your hosts Rev Ted Woodruff,
Era Parisian, Nina Ashby,
and me, Nick Humphreys.
Virtual Vision FM,
your platform to all things spiritual.
Be part of the show. Call in at area code 646-716-9336.
Hello, and welcome once again to Virtual Vision FM, your platform to all things spiritual. I just want to say right at the top of the hour here, when you hear our intro and you hear that phone number actually no longer applies. So please do not call it. That is our Blog Talk number, and we are no longer with Blog Talk. We have opted to go to a strictly Virtual Vision platform, and we hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. Still working out a few of the kinks, but that's okay. It's a natural evolution, and we're having fun with it. Today we are here. Actually, it's only Nina and I that are here. Ted is under the weather, and Nick is attending a conference. So it's just Nina and I. Hi, Nina. How are you doing?
I'm really, really well, and so happy to be here. It's like Women's Day, isn't it? Because I know Day in North America and in Australia. Not here in the UK, however. We have Mothering Sunday right before Easter, so we've had ours, but I have to celebrate mine on both sides of the ocean. So I wrote to my mom today. So maybe it's just fitting today, befitting that we have a kind of a goddess moment.
Yes, I agree. And it is Mother's Day. It is a very busy, well, it has been a very busy weekend for me. Many clients are calling and booking, and they want to speak to Mom, who is in spirit, and it has been amazing to be able to deliver those messages. So I've been having a great time. And even after the show today, I am booked with, another client to do just that. And then I get treated to dinner tonight. So I'm really excited. I love Mother's Day. I love the celebration. My daughter is a mom, and, I love watching her be a mother, because now I can see how I wished I could have been when I raised her, right? So we're always correcting our paths a little bit, depending on what our mothers did for us. So
it's the perfect path. You did the best job that you could do, Era.
Well, now I get to see all that pay off, right? Because
yes, exactly.
Phenomenal mom. She's just a phenomenal mom. So today, what we're going to be doing is just having a discussion, and if someone would like a reading, they can certainly text us in the chat room here, and we'll see what we can do. It is Mother's Day, and hopefully we can connect with some of your mothers too. But first and foremost, we have discussion time. So let's hear your thoughts in the chat room as the show progresses. Nina, do you want to introduce the topic?
Right. Well, I was having a good old meditate and asked the guides, my inner guides, what should we be talking about? What, and I just put it up there, and I got a very clear message: heaven on earth, choices, and appreciation. And you know what they're like on the other side, They're very succinct. They don't give you loads of explanations. They keep it quite simple. And those were the topics for me to think about, to stimulate my higher self to begin to think, well, heaven on earth. Well, you know what? That really goes along with what I feel about our beautiful planet. In not only in terms of nature as I experience it, even living in a big city with all the trees blooming and the flowers, and going out into the countryside or by the ocean or whatever landscape of nature that I visit, but also this sense of when I meditate, this image of the blue planet in the beautiful, expansive space, just from sort of microcosm to macrocosm. And this sense of, well, what is heaven? And heaven is on earth, because this is where we are. This is the divine place to be, and we are always to the divine. If only we could open our eyes and celebrate that connection more.
Yes, I absolutely agree. And it's so funny that you should say that you had that experience. I was just outside today taking a bit of a break, and I was looking at all the trees and the new growth, and then it made me think of fractal energy, and that's the pattern of the universe and how everything just unfolds as it should. And it follows a pattern, right? And
It does.
that pattern for us as human beings is a thought pattern. We can actually creates the feeling, which is the beacon to the universe, and that is what we unfold. So our fractal energy is continuously unfolding according to what we think and feel. And so if you want to experience heaven on earth, then guess what you need to do, right? You should be thinking more positive and feeling good and be joyful. I mean, in spite of what you think is going on around you.
Well, I think we think too much. If we could be more and have less thoughts. Most of the time we don't think. Most of the time we have thoughts. And they're two quite different and distinct experiences. Don't you agree?
Well, I think one is deliberate and one is automatic concerning, well, whatever co-pilot is in place, whatever recycled over and over and over again is what you will tend to recycle over and over and over again. I heard somewhere, and I can't remember where, but we tend to think the same thoughts over and over and over and over again, the same thoughts every day, every week, every month, every year. And often we think them so often that we don't realize we're doing it, and it just kicks into an emotional value, and then we have the feeling, and that's what kind of attracts things in as well.
Well, we are creatures of habit. Those habits create pathways within our astral bodies. And so being able to see people's auras all the time, I'm able to see these cloud-like structures, sometimes get the thought forms. Actually, I receive the thought forms. Sometimes I see them sitting in the field, and sometimes I just receive them through my psychic senses. So via my physical sensation, my emotions, visually, or my own mind thoughts. And they are distinctly different from my thoughts because I'm picking them up from out there, so that they're not generated within me.
But
so I observe other people's.
But there's
Pardon?
But there isn't any out there. So,
well, other than me, other than generated by me, there is an out there that is not generated by me or you. We're all generating it, and maybe it's our beliefs that this is what it is. I don't know. What do you think?
I don't know. It's kind of interesting to think about, isn't it? No pun intended. But to me, it's impossible not to think. That to me is a discipline like transcendental meditation, where you learn to silence the mind completely. That to me is silencing thought. But to silence everyday thought, that to me is I don't even know if I want to try to do that, because that tells me where I'm going. And then when I catch it, I can correct it and I can go a different way. But I do know what you're saying. What you're saying is that you get the sensation before you get the thought. The sensation actually causes the thought. Does that make sense? Do I have that right?
What I'm saying is that I wasn't talking about what I was thinking, or what I was saying was that in the world, I can see other people's vibrations around them in their field, and I can pick up what they're thinking and feeling by the colors and by the thought forms around them. And sometimes I can actually see it, and sometimes it impacts upon me and my psychic senses.
Oh, okay. Okay. I get you there. That's completely different. That's the individuality you're picking up on.
Yeah.
The energy, how that energy is being expressed.
Yes.
And that's really interesting. Go ahead.
But in terms of thinking and having thoughts, they come from two different levels.
Yes, they do.
And I know that my lower mind, and I don't mean that as being a lesser mind, and useful, but far too often the lower mind is like the monkey, just keeps on tape looping all the time. So learning to manage that mind active by giving more attention to your higher mind and creating a better balance and alignment between one's higher self or one's higher thought, which is more conceptual, more over an overview type of thought, which is different from and can be construed as thinking. In other words, really contemplating a subject and opening it out rather than just going through what you know. For the lower mind is a tape loop mind, but it's also a list-making mind.
Right. And I completely agree with you there. Where I think we believe the same thing, I tend to think of it as the lower mind as being the physical. That's the physical mind. That's my ego mind. That's my navigator through this physical existence. And the higher me is just the energetic part of myself, the higher self that is more, well, everything is connected to soul, but it knows where I'm wanting to go and what I want to do, etc. this lifetime. So it's quieting the ego mind to allow the higher self to not dictate, but, direct traffic kind of thing.
Direct. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why the word choices was given to us tonight.
Yes. I like that.
Because if we can be attuned to our heaven while we're being on earth, then we're in a much better position to make a completely different set of choices than if we believed that heaven is separate from earth.
Well, I think we're conditioned to believing that heaven is somewhere almost unattainable, and we have to really prove ourselves to get there. We have to pass all the tests and jump through all the hoops and be the best that we can be. And even then we might not be successful, right? And so I'm more inclined to agree with your line of thought, is that it is already here, and it is us, and we allow it to unfold or we don't. And yeah, it isn't someplace far away, and it isn't someplace that is elusive.
But allowing it to unfold is still a set of choices.
True.
Because allowing is something that's quite hard to do in many ways, unless you actually make a decision to, I don't know what other word to use except allow, but suspend certain kinds of judgments, suspend the need to have it be the way that we can think it ought to be, and just allow it to be.
Well, that's the difficulty with a lot of people too, is that when we say that happiness is a choice, and they say, oh, come on, if that person would behave differently, then I'd be happy. But you can choose to focus on that which displeases you and not have that altered at all. In fact, it's expanded upon energetically.
Yes.
But you do have an opportunity to choose to put your attention somewhere else, because in as much as one thing can really get your goat and really be a thorn in your side, there's a kabillion things over here that you can focus on that make you feel better. it's not going to fix that thing right now, but it's going to make you
Mm.
feel better. And that is the choice we make in every waking moment, is
Yes.
to choose what makes us feel better. Now, there's a lot of people out there that might say that this is selfish, but really paying attention to self is not a bad thing. If everyone paid attention to self and really ensured that their thoughts and focus was on perpetually on things that were joyful and happier, there wouldn't be a problem on the planet. You know,
I
everybody
agree.
everybody's looking for that joy instead of trying to prove how right they are. And that's one thing I really take issue with on this plane of existence right now, is that yes, there are a lot of terrible things that are happening right now. And yes, you have every right to not like it. Every right to not like it. But if not liking it and being so right in not liking it affects your own vibration, then it's no good. It's not of benefit. You're not changing anything. You're just right. So you can be right, but you can and know that you're right, but then choose another direction of thought too.
Mm.
Right?
Right. But a lot of people who are into rightness aren't really happy, because when the world does not conform to their perception of what should they think is right, then they become extremely unhappy.
Well, I agree. And then again, we have to remind ourselves that we aren't responsible for anyone else's happiness. You're responsible for your own.
I know.
People that allow life to affect them in that way are actually living life externally. And there's no joy in that, because you cannot manipulate circumstances or dynamics or people to behave in a way that's appropriate for you. It never works.
Mm.
It might work once or twice, but only mediocre at best, right? And so we need to be more mindful that it all comes from us. And if we clean up our own inner stuff, we find the heaven that we've been searching for, and it's been there all along.
Yeah. But we have to look for it. It's there all the time, but we have to reach for it in a very conscious way.
Well, it's a conscious way, in a deliberate way, that we reach for it, and we live it through alignment of it. Right?
Yes.
So
yes.
It's something that we don't just choose one morning to get up and say, okay, today's when it all starts. I'm going to live my heaven. And oh, look, I've had my coffee and it's done. It's over. That was like 5 minutes. Whoopee. It's a consistent choice that you make in every moment that allows it to unfold. It isn't a one-shot deal, right?
So it also goes down to, I love the way you segued right into that, because you were talking about the coffee moment, weren't you?
Yes.
So yeah, you can have your coffee and it's over. You think, oh, I had my coffee. But if you appreciate that coffee, if you smell it and savor the warm cup and have real joy in connection with your coffee moment, then you've got heaven on earth.
Well, yes, because
every time you've got joy, every time you've got joy in that moment, you are connected to heaven.
That's right. And people want heaven. I think people want heaven to be that elusive place, that elusive kingdom that is so far out of reach that none of us will ever get there, right? And it's really a challenge for people to bring it back home, bring it back to their center and their core, and begin to live it. And yet it's there for him, because there for everyone. And it's there for everyone because of, and I love this law. I love this universal law. I love it. The law of correspondence. The law of correspondence. It means everything corresponds to each other and every other thing. So when you have the law of correspondence, it's the law that states, as above, so below, but so below as above. So with that, with our choices, we can choose to feel better, and it will be responded to or corresponded to by the universe itself, which is the power that creates worlds, right? Source energy. And how effective is that? And so that correspondence is always going to be interactive. It is always going to respond to whatever you're thinking or doing. And that to me is powerful. Powerful. You can live that heaven as often as you like, in every moment, in every day, as long as you breathe.
Yes. And we know that we fall out of alignment so easily, and that to make it more and more habitual, to override the old habits, and it means continual vigilance, practice, but not vigilance like it's a heavy thing. Vigilance is something that you get rewarded for. And what's the reward? Being now in joy.
Yes, definitely. Do you know, my guides had taught me through this one experience that I never expected in a million years. And they showed me that ultimate moment, or they allowed me to experience or helped me experience that ultimate moment where there's a Rumi quote that I am not in the universe is in me. And I experienced that. And I was breathing in the universe and it was pulsing, and I was breathing out the universe and it was pulsing, and I was one with everything in that moment. And it was the most glorious, euphoric moment. And yet even since having that, I find that that's an elusive state of being, and I'm always chasing that high, basically. I sound like a little addict, don't I? But it's true. You chase that high. It is the most phenomenal feeling ever. But just having that one experience leads me to believe that it's there for all of us, and it can be achieved at any time. All it takes is true alignment. And I loved what you had to say earlier, is that, there's no fighting it, there's no forcing it, there's no trying to control it. It's just allow the flow of the universe to simply unfold. And it will, and it does perfectly. It's when we get in the way and try and manipulate things and force the river that we have our biggest challenges, I think.
Yes. And we forget ourselves. And that we forget the potential that we have, and we become focused on out there rather than our core. And out there is very compelling. It is very compelling. But I like the way that you said before, well, is there an out there?
Well, it kind of boils down. What is the oxymoron to this life? And I don't mean just mine, but everyone's, is that we are here in the physical existence. This physical vehicle is geared to allow us to experience the physicality of this level of existence, and yet it is considered out there. So in as much as we are hands-on, so to speak, in the physical existence, there's an expectation that we might want to rise above that physicality of things and rely more on the spirit and soul that we are, that higher self, to show us where that flow of the universe is and how to stay in it. And you're right, we do sort of fall out of it every once in a while, and I still do. But that's part of the duality of where we live.
Yes.
So I know that as long as I'm out of that flow, I feel it. There's a complete disconnect. I'm an unhappy little camper, let me tell you. And then I get indignant, and then I get almost resentful because, well, I'm out. I don't want to be out. How dare the river toss me out that way, when actually it was a choice. It was a choice of mine to go that way. And when I do it, I have to remind myself that there's a reason for that, and it's part of the creation process. As soon as I sort of swim in the waters that don't feel good, I can figure out what it is that I want and what it is that I need, and then I can redirect my attention and focus and get back into the flow. And what do you know? There it is. So there's a reason to be out of the flow. And I tend not to worry too much about it. And I tend to remind myself that I can stay indignant for as long as I want. That's my prerogative. Whether it's doing me any good or not is the different thing. But sometimes I just want to be indignant, right? But I know how to get back into the flow. And that is the greatest, greatest gift. But again, it's all about the choices that we make. It's all about choosing to go back into the flow and not feel put upon for too long and victimized by life. And I always kind of have to raise my eyebrow when I hear victimized by life. To me, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, Nina. To me, life unfolds because we're life. We're unfolding it. And so it's going to unfold almost like I said earlier, fractally, and according to our thoughts and feelings. Whatever beacon we're sending out to source energy, that's what's being paved. So how can we be surprised? Really, we can't be a victim unless you want to say that you're a victim of your own mindset. And even that's a choice, because you can choose out of that mindset too, right?
Sure.
So what are your thoughts?
I totally agree. I mean, and I say this all the time to my clients. I say, you know, you're not their victim. You choose to be in this dysfunctional relationship because of many reasons that you give yourself that it's worthwhile to be there, including that you may not be bothered to get out of it because, again, reasons that you don't want to be alone, or there won't be anybody for you, or, you know, whatever your mind is telling you, whatever your fears are bringing up for you. And so you make a choice to stay where you are, and you choose to feel like a victim of somebody else's energy, but it's your choice to do that. So actually, you're not a victim.
No.
And whether it's in relationships or jobs or where you live or how you feel about yourself or your relationship to your parents or whomever, there's many, many people out there who feel the victim and are great blamers. Because blaming and victimization seem to go together very well, like bedfellows.
Well, it does. And the thing that I know we're going to get viewer mail on this, because what we're saying is that there's no need to be a victim. And usually when we talk about and touch upon people's personal power, what comes back is the worst case scenarios. Well, what about this, you know, and what about the children who suffer at the hands of others? How can you say there are no victims?
It is hard, but the law of correspondences, it says what you give out, you get back. If you're vibrating at a certain rate, you get that back. It could be a soulic vibration, that people need to go through certain kinds of circumstances in their lives for their consciousness. So we say that the soul chooses the perfect circumstances for life, and that could be a deformed physical, born in a war-torn or famine-stricken area. It could be being born to rich parents who are never there for you because they're always trotting around in the globe and leaves you with nannies. I mean, just because you have money doesn't mean you're not neglected. You know, so every circumstance in your formative years, including your body morphology, your DNA, which is constantly broadcasting energy, that is perfect in the sense that it is what is required for your growth and evolution of consciousness.
Well, yes, and I'm a firm believer that there are no victims either, that we choose to come through, and we choose the situations that we're born into specifically for our own soul growth. And why that it doesn't reconcile actually with the human mindset, and that's where the disconnect is.
Yeah.
And it's like, people who get cancer, you don't wake up one morning and decide you're going to have cancer. That's a choice, and we're telling you that you choose that. It's not a human choice, it's a soul choice, and it's all done to further your evolution and growth. And guess what? Every player in the dynamic, whether it's a child, whether it's your sibling, it matters not. Everything is unfolding absolutely perfectly according to what the soul growth requires. And so when we look at the soul choices, there are the soul choices and there are the human choices. So, and one's the lower mind and one's the higher mind. Get that?
Indeed.
So, everything happens perfectly, everything. And I've had my situations in life that have not been pleasant at all. It's been sometimes downright terrifying. But what I have learned through the generosity and graciousness of my guides and counsel is that it's never about the experience, ever. It's all about what you do with the experience. That's what dictates your growth, your happiness, and your well-being. It's, okay, I'm not going to dwell on what happened to me. I'm going to see where it can take me. Where do I want to go from here? Do I want to stay and dwell in this little house of despair for the rest of my life? No. And I'm a firm believer, too, that our past experiences never have to define us.
No, I agree.
They can enhance who we become, but they're not, because what that says is it's going to hold this little box for we're going to amount to anything more. And some people stay in that box because they identify so strongly with the pain that they do not know who they are without it. So, it's an interesting mix. All these choices come into the picture: the soul choice, the human choice, and there's no choice. No, corrected. Even a victim, when they choose not to grow, is a choice. Anyway, over to you.
I'm in total agreement, and all of those choices are so interesting because we have infinite amount of variety of choices in our database. We have so much information to pull from, to be creative from, and draw down that information to make life so different, make our lives and other people's lives so different. And some people say, well, how can I change a situation? How can I help this person? And what I say to them is, you help them most by being yourself, by being an example of the light, by being an example of good behavior, by being an example of making good choices. And that's you can't change them, because wanting to help them sometimes also is a way of changing them.
Well, it is.
Unconsciously.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Sandra in the chat room. Hi, Sandra. How are you doing?
Sandra.
Sandra says the more you get pulled back and the more you learn and realize that you need to plow on makes you more able. Bad days can be followed by, hey, no way. And, that's so true. We know that we can get caught up and paralyzed on our path sometimes, but when we are aware, we know that there's always a choice that we can make to keep moving forward. And sometimes I don't know how long I've spent in that paralysis where it's like, I don't even want to try anymore. I don't want to move forward. This just hurts so bad. And then I have to kind of stop myself and say, well, why would I want to stay in a place that hurts so bad?
Exactly.
Because I'm right to feel this way, that I'm justified in who said what and who didn't and who should have and now what? No, that I can't be right enough to make a difference if that's the rightness I'm trying to kind of reinforce in my life. So thanks, Sandra, for that comment. That's really good.
Yes, thank you. I had a really interesting experience last week, a difficult experience, but but one that I believe illustrates how when something happens, when something happens that seems to be negative, and you step back, find forgiveness, take responsibility, look at yourself in that, and how my vibration might have caused what happened, that the expansion of realization and connection becomes so incredible, and the growth is so fantastic. So I saw a client, and she seemed to be happy at the end of her reading with the reading or pleased with the reading I gave her. And then I received a call the next day saying that as a result of the reading I gave her, she went and she canceled all these things. She was very unhappy. She just wanted to crawl into her bed, and her mother took, umbrage and complained and started this whole chain of anger. And then my boss called me, and it was quite a difficult thing. And my first reaction was to be defensive and to say, it's to be defensive. And I thought, well, there's nothing much I can do about it. I gave that reading in good faith, and whatever she chose to focus on that was negative, because she was in a negative space, she then uses an excuse to not face what she needed to face, which then drops her parents in it, who then had to defend her, and that we got blamed for something because the parent may have been very angry because she lost money, she can't control her teenage daughter, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a whole string of circumstances that came about because I have a belief, and this is my realization, that if people come to me, then my job is to be truthful. But sometimes the way that I deliver that truth is perhaps not as sensitive as it could be. And that also the realization that some people can't take the truth. They don't want to deal with the truth. And even though they come for the reading and they get that information, they don't know how to use that information. And that myself as a reader can be blamed for that. And that's pretty tricky sometimes because we deal in intangibles. But what was so interesting is I found myself in a real fear state. And what I knew that I had to do was get myself at state, because it wasn't going to help. And so I started to talk to myself. I went through this process of saying, right, well, it's done. And I asked for forgiveness. I put light around myself. I put light around this. I asked my angels, my guides. I did everything that I could to say to myself, to take myself out of this fear state, this negative mindset that was like a spiral that pulls one's energy down. And every time I found and I would do that, and then it would kind of drift back, and then I'd have to do it again. So for a whole day, I had to be, like, almost every hour, be extremely vigilant in my mind to bring myself back to a lighter place, to smile, to say, all will be well, all is perfect in its way, and I'm learning from this, and they're learning from this. And my higher self to their higher self, so that something on the inner planes was being activated rather than this terrible fear. So this was, and then about a day later, as a result of that, everything that I've been asking for started to manifest. So my boss came back. She said, "Don't worry, it's okay." Whereas that's not what she was saying the day before. So it was quite interesting. Quite interesting.
Yeah, what an exercise. And I have to say that you're not alone in that exercise. Every one of us that is in this work kind of faces the same sort of thing from time to time. And it really does cause us, and this is the good part, it causes us to retreat. It causes us to become very introspective. It causes us to question, and it causes us to seek clarity. And you all of that, and that keeps the vibration pure because the intent is correct.
Yes.
And so, you know, we all have that time, and you know, you handled it beautifully, but what you've touched on here is just so important for people to understand. We talk about, and I'm sorry, one of my pet peeves is that that phrase, love and light, right? Not many people even understand what they're saying when they say that. Love and light is love and knowledge, right? Light is knowledge, and you know, so it's love and knowledge, and people use it very freely, and it kind of drives me crazy. Anyway, that's my pet peeve. But when huh? What?
One of them.
One of them, yes. Yeah. We were discussing another one.
We were discussing the other one before.
It's about, you know, meditation on
That's okay.
There we go.
That's fine.
But you know, it's not going to happen now. But it's really important for people to understand that positive thinking is the way forward. Positive thinking is a process that you have actually detailed quite well. It is not, well, I've had a good thought yesterday and nothing happened, right? It's not about doing your best for 5 minutes and then saying it doesn't work. It is something that you have, and that's the work. That's our work as human beings being here on this plane of existence, is the work between where we find ourselves and where we need to be vibrationally. So you found yourself at a very low place because your energy was drawn down, and you had to deliberately and consciously work your energy back up. And so you actually catch up to where you that whole experience caused you to become. And it isn't a one-shot deal. It is a choice in every moment, and you made it every hour on the hour, it seems. And good for you. You know, I mean, the benefits are
vast.
Yeah, there's just too many to even mention, right? But that's the gist of it. Our work here is to create a mindset that is beneficial, not only to our lives, but by indirectly, by doing it in our own life, we affect and impact everyone else around us. And you said something really important there earlier about the only thing we need to do is just be. Just be. And my guides say this all the time. There's nothing that you must do. There is everything that you need to be. And when you be that, then everyone else can feel it around you. Yeah. And you become the powerful example, but you also become the very quiet teacher. So that's the best and most powerful way to be.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree. I agree.
So it's just not that one-shot deal. I saw a post on Facebook. You know, read stuff on Facebook, it has to be true, right? There is this
maybe.
It kind of struck me, especially because of the topic of today's discussion. It said that depression was an illness just like heart disease and cancer. And positive thinking is not going to work because it would be like telling a diabetic to have nice thoughts that would lower their blood sugar. I mean, it was just a real punch, right? At the positive thinking. And that post, actually, I don't know who wrote it, it doesn't really matter, but whoever wrote it certainly didn't have a handle on energy and what energy is and who they are, and they are vastly disconnected from their power. When you hear things like, oh, positive thinking, yeah, that's, ridiculous. Like, I'm going to think positive thoughts and gas is going to magically appear in my gas tank, right? Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way at all. But I can tell you that positive thinking actually is more beneficial to your health than worrying and fretting and fearing what might be wrong with you.
Mhm.
So, it's not going to cure everything right now, but it is the most powerful way to allow yourself to be more proactive in your own well-being.
Mm,
So what are
absolutely.
your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that health or ill health is about a misalignment with spirit between your lower self and your higher spirit. So you're not allowing life force to flow through you properly. And there could be many reasons for that, but that all disease begins on a higher energetic frequency. And when you repeat certain thoughts and feelings and actions frequently enough, you get an accumulation of misalignment, which then causes problems. All of the problems that we have, whatever they are, blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, blood sugar problems, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel good health starts with good thinking, which is why every single religious system says, think good thoughts. Because there's a
Well,
recognition that having good thoughts changes your vibration, which acts on your good health. So that's what I directly think about, what you've just said. So yeah, I think positive thinking is very misunderstood and very airy-fairy, but it's really takes a certain, we're taught to think very negatively. And indeed, some languages are constructed in a negative way, which is very interesting.
and so that sort of like that kind of like interests me, because what language in particular are you speaking of?
Well, French, for example. And what are the French most known? Sorry, French people out there, if you're listening, but I had learned French. So,
Talking to someone with the last name of Parisian, so yeah, go
well,
for it.
no offense, but a lot of things in French, you say, do you like that? It's not bad. It's good. They say, it's not bad. So just in the way of how they frame things,
Right.
colloquially, etc., there are expressions which are things. And in England, you say, well, to French people, what do we think most about what French people say? They say non. Ask them a question, no, we're not going to do it. And I mean, not all French people. I'm sorry, maybe this is very politically incorrect, but I think that there's certain ways that in how certain cultures express themselves that there is more towards that negativity and judgmental quality. And it's not just French, but that's the thing, the language that comes to mind.
Even English is pretty negative sometimes.
Yes.
How we teach our children, don't run in the street.
Yes.
Don't spill your milk.
Don't do this. Don't do that. Don't do this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So from a very early age, when the kids go into we on a protective level, we say, don't do this, do not do that, do not do this. It's supposed to be protective, but then it gives attention to that energy, the no energy. And then we wonder why kids have tantrums because they get negative attention.
That's right.
And then that starts also a lot of pain connected with that. And then that goes into adult habituation, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And so, a little NLP goes a long way. It's neuro-linguistic programming
Yes.
for those who are interested. But we should be more mindful as to what we're saying and how we're saying it. And it's just not the tone. It's just not the tone of voice that matters. It is the words.
It's the words, definitely, and plus the tone.
Mhm.
Because you can say, yes, yes, or you can say, yes, still the same word, but the tone and how you deliver it carries that word
Right.
and the energy about how you wish to apply. So it's both of those together. They're married.
That's true. So yes, I do get that, and I absolutely agree. And again, it goes right back to the beginning of the show when we talked about energy. Understand the nature of energy. Energy is in everything at all times, everywhere. There isn't anything that you can tangibly access through your five senses, six senses even, that is not energy. Energy is it. That's it. You start understanding the nature of energy and you don't have to question things. It's how people, because we're all here expressing individuality, the same energy, but expressing it differently, that allows us to see the morphing that can go on and how that energy can morph itself through a perspective. And you talked about it just a while ago about thoughts. You think it over and over and over again. That's all a belief is something that you have thought over and over and over and over and over again. That's it. That it's no big thing that's been bestowed upon you by ancestry. It's a thought that you keep thinking. That's it. And
It's your story.
It is. It truly is. And that's the stuff. That's the stuff that gets encoded into your DNA and is bound to impact everyone that's coming down the pipe, right?
Yeah.
And your mind. So it's really mind-boggling when you start to realize how big that statement is. Understand energy. It really will carry you far. And just on that note, I had an email from a listener, viewer, just this past week, and he was asking about who we're actually contacting when we're contacting spirit, because there are some belief structures out there that say that we're just connecting to emotional imprints or souls that are fake. They're false. They're on the astral plane. They're not really in spirit. They're just false spirits that we're sort of duping people is basically the bottom line. And it's something that shouldn't be done. And that when we die, the light is another dupe, that we shouldn't go towards the light. And my take on that was like, that's really cool. That's a really cool perspective. I really thought it was really interesting, and I was very curious. And then I sort of talked to the council about it. And as usual, the council said, no, talk about energy, go back to energy, because that's where it all stems from. And so then it sort of, made sense to me. And it's that law of correspondence again, right? It's the biggie. It corresponds to everything, and it will manifest in your physical reality. So as above, so below. So whatever the belief structure, if your perception is something, then that is what is going to be your experience. There's no other way it can be. And you always have, now this is interesting, because you always have the thought about something before you have the experience. We humans tend to think that we have the experience and then we formulate the beliefs about it. All the experience is a result. It's the evidence of what you've been sending out vibrationally. And as above, so below, right? So it's going to come back to you and you're going to experience it. So my thing is I can certainly tell an emotional imprint when I walk into someone's home and they're having, some sort of activity going on, or they can sense something. I know when that's an emotional imprint. I know when I'm contacting spirit, because it is such a higher vibration, much higher than any emotional imprint or lost or limboed soul. And I had to be very careful because I have my own belief structure on that. But
Yeah.
you know the difference between the two. And I would be hard pressed to believe that I'm
Dealing with phantoms,
basically.
imaginative phantoms. Well, one of the things that that happens when you choose to work with developing your sensitivity, innate sensitivity, is through the process of exploring, which then gives you understanding about what it is you're perceiving. The more you look at something, the more you can perceive, the more sensitive you become to the differences between different energetic states. So it's like me. I always say that meeting spirits or discarnate intelligence is like meeting people in this plane. Some you get along with, some you don't. Some you think are flaky, some you think are wise. Some you have an affinity to, some you definitely don't want to hang out with. And that, as above, so below, but after another manner. But there's every kind of being, every kind of intelligence exists at other levels, just as they exist here in the earth plane. And it's about discernment, isn't it?
Well, it is. And when you put it in that context, Nina, I think it really speaks to the energy component of everything, because
yes,
how we feel when we determine someone's flaky or someone's not someone that you want to kind of hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
That's all based on, yes, there might be action by that person that would let you know, but action will make you feel something, right? So we're constantly feeling and interpreting those vibrations, and we compare it. And this is the other thing we do. We compare that vibration with our own. And if it doesn't feel good, it drops our vibration.
Right.
And so we need to bring it back up again. And how do we do that? Well, we just know that that person isn't the right person to be around. That energy does not align. And so there's no harm, no foul. It just is. And that is the universal law of relativity.
Mm-hmm.
Everything just is until it's compared to something else. And as human beings, we're always comparing everything. And we might want to, I can understand when we're on our journey and we're seeking, we need to compare information to see what feels right. That's awesome. But, we don't have to question how we feel about it. We should just feel it and say, okay, I might not understand right now, but I know that my moment of awareness will come, because that's just the way the river goes. And yeah, but again, I can't stress enough, and I'm probably really annoying people by saying it so much, but know and understand the nature of energy, and you've got the world by the tail.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Totally in agreement with you, my dear.
Yeah. So, I'd like to say that our chat room is full, and that there are people just, commenting left, right, and center. We have a couple people. It is Mother's Day here, and Sunday and Mother's Day in Canada, which is all I can speak to, everyone is out and about with Mom. My daughter's at work, or else I'd be out with her, I'm sure. And I will be seeing her later and going for dinner. So that will be my thing. But this afternoon, I think everybody's out enjoying the beautiful weather and their moms, which is really, really sweet. So Sandra, thank you for commenting in the chat room. It's really been a treat to read your thoughts. And because you know what? Your thoughts cause us to feel. Hey, that's just the nature of energy. Over to you, Nina. I think I interrupted you.
No, I'm just nodding and saying, yeah. And very grateful for everybody's participation in the show this evening. I gather that we've had no requests for readings tonight, but that's okay too, because what we've been talking about hopefully has inspired you to be your best self, your lightest self, your brightest self, and to understand that when you tap into your energy and make that choice on a continual basis, then you can be the best you and achieve amazing things.
I think Don Miguel Ruiz, he's the author of the Four Agreements. And if you want to read a book that is very inspiring, please do so and get your hands on that little book. It's a very easy read and it's a very quick read, and it's full of this profound wisdom. That's The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. He writes about always do your best, always. But know that your best is going to be different on one moment to the next. Sometimes you're very tired, so you're not going to be able to jump that bar. Sometimes you're not feeling well, you're ill, so the bar is set lower. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or you're a failure. It means that you are doing the best that you can right now. Us as human beings, we tend to set the bar so high for ourselves. Everybody else is down here. If you set the bar and somebody didn't make it, you'd say, that's okay. You're having a bad day and you'll feel better about it tomorrow. But up here is where we set the bar for ourselves. And if we don't make it, then the self-punishment starts and the self-talk starts, and it starts to bring you down. So this book, The Four Agreements, really explains it well. That do your best, absolutely do your best in every moment, but know that your best is going to change, and don't beat yourself up over it.
And I have one more thing to add to that.
Yes.
You're always enough.
Yes, I love it.
You're always enough, because I can't tell you how many people I see, and even that I feel in myself, I haven't worked enough, I'm not this enough, I'm not that enough. I mean, this negative mind voice about how you haven't tried enough. Well, there's only doing it. And if you can pull back and say, you know what, it's all perfect in the moment. I don't have to see all of the moments. I just need to trust and be in myself, feeling that I'm enough. Then
you are.
All of a sudden, some huge thing just lifts, all this darkness lifts from you, and it's incredible.
It is. And again, you just have to be. That's it. And no matter how well you're doing it doesn't matter, because everything is perfect in that moment. Now, Sandra has indicated that she thought she might like a reading today. So I'm just wondering, Nina,
okay,
do you want to try and tune in here for Sandra? Do you have a specific question, Sandra? If you do, just type it in the chat room and we'll pick it up.
I'm tuning in while Sandra may be typing. For some reason, my chat facility is just not working today. So you'll have to read it out to me if it's...
I will do that.
So what I'm doing, perhaps you're writing something, but if you're not, then I'm just going to give you some guidance that I feel. So I've chosen a card for you, and it's a beautiful card. And oops, I'm trying to get it into my frame. It's called Ascension.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And this card it shows a beautiful woman walking upon the astral plane, holding the world in her hands. And it's incredible. Can you see?
That is a beauty. Now,
and
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay. She has a question.
She wants to know if she will move house soon.
Okay. So I chose this card, Ascension, or I chose a card for you, Sandra, and it says Ascension. And she's holding in her hand. So this is a new world. And just relating to your question, of course, moving to a new house is like moving to a new world, isn't it? Because if you do, then you have to reconsider every movement that you make comes from a different center, a different physical center. And she's holding the world in her hands, and the worlds are fractaling out. My feeling here is that you will be moving, and you will move house, but it's going to take you probably another 5 months, this is what I'm being given, to find the right place to move, because you're changing a great deal and you're having to let go of a great deal right now. And in that process, you are changing your vibration, which means that the house that needs to manifest you for you is not available yet for you. That's what I feel. And you think that you feel frustrated because you think that you should have found it already. But I'm being shown that by shedding things from your life, by shedding beliefs from your life, this transformational process that you're going on is lightening you. And you have been going through a period of tremendous enlightenment too. Self-realization, so that the word ascension means that you're rising, your ability to rise upon the planes and connect with your light is so much greater and higher that your energy bodies are having a little bit of problem making certain adjustments to this new vibrational frequency that you're carrying. And the new home that you will find will be a reflection of the change in the amount of light that you have around you in the space that you will be attracting. So that is the longer explanation of the more compact message with it, that is, yes, 5 months, you will find the place, and you will move before the end of this year. And the frustration that you've been having is a necessary process within this process of looking for a new place. So I hope that that's been useful for you.
That's really cool, Nina. I'm liking that, and I hope that was helpful, Sandra. The other thing I just want to augment what Nina said, and that is to say that by June, which is just next month, you're going to be noticing different opportunities that are popping up. And yet, I do agree with Nina that 5 months it'll be when you find the ideal place. Your lesson, your task is not to compromise yourself, and you've done far too much of that in the past, and you don't want to be too quick to jump on a place just because it's a place that'll get you out of where you are. And I know it's been frustrating, I know it's been annoying, and you just want to get to a better place, and you will. But your task between now and 5 months is to be discerning. And that is to understand that the first place that comes up as an opportunity in June, you can look at it clearly and say, well, it's almost perfect. Almost. You have to remind yourself that you are able to have whatever it is that you truly want, and it can be exactly the way that you want it. So just say thank you to the universe and say, you know, that's almost there. You're almost there. I'll keep waiting. You just keep providing me those opportunities, and they're going to come very quickly. Once they start in June, they're just going to be very, very fast in materializing. So have fun with it. That's the other lesson here, is to have fun and sit back and allow the universe to unfold exactly in a way that you prefer it to, and it will do just that. And I'm excited for you because I know that this move for you is going to be absolutely ideal, and you will finally begin to exhale. I really feel like where you are, everything is very tense, and you are always consistently looking over your shoulder because you're waiting for that next thing to happen. And what you need is that place where you can create your own little peaceful environment, and that's coming. And I agree with Nina, 5 months. So there we go. Hope that's been helpful. And let us know in the comment section, please, if it made any sense to you whatsoever. Thank you for your wonderful work, Nina. I just, I love your cards. I don't use cards, but I always appreciate people that do because I really like to look at them.
I've got loads of cards. This is my Starseed, Syrian Starseed deck, and I save it for working with you because I know you're a great fan, and the pictures are just amazing.
They are.
They are amazing and very inspiring. And one of the ways that I got our topic for tonight was by choosing a card, and I got, what should we talk about tonight? And here's the card I got. Guidance.
Kind of
With
like that.
a picture of the Sphinx and Buddha, you know, and this sense of dimensionality about connection to source. The ultimate measure of one's spiritual direction comes from within.
Okay.
And that's really everything we've been speaking about today.
That's right. It's never outside of us. It's always within. And that's the cool part. I think, we hear from Sandra now. It says, thank you, Nina. I am being held back by others and I feel frustrated. Thanks, Era, also. Love to you both. So there you go, Sandra. Glad we could shed a little bit of light.
Yes.
And I just want you to remember, you know, others, the frustration we feel by people who are saying and doing or not, the less attention we can put on that, the better, because you are the one that's in charge of unfolding your life, no one else, and no one else can feel anything but you. So, you know, choose a different feeling, allow them to be whoever they need to be because they're here learning just as much as we are. And you just keep redirecting your focus and let it go, let it go, let it go, and just allow people to be whoever they want to be. You do not need to engage, and certainly you can choose a different response.
Mm-hmm.
So
there was another thing that I want to say about that too, is that timings can sometimes be slightly off.
Yeah, they're all fluid, aren't they?
Yeah, because if this reading is based on where you are at now. And when you really become more aligned, shift your energies, clear the energy in your house, etc., you could ramp that time up so that it could be different. And that the other thing is that even if that doesn't happen and we go back to that time frame, everything still is perfect. And we don't necessarily always know the reasons why we're being delayed. But we have to trust it, because sometimes it's only because the perfect solution is not available to us. Mm-hmm. So being frustrated only says, I'm not getting what I want now. So your comment about keeping on focusing what you want and letting go of the frustration, that's the challenge. Kind of raising that vibration to like, okay, well, I know what I want and I will get it eventually when the time is right.
Eventually, even when you say eventually, it perpetuates an elusiveness, and that's what people really kind of like don't want. They want to know exactly when, but they don't realize it's always up to them. Mm-hmm. When it happens, the universe unfolds perfectly. You don't want it too soon. Well, if you could get it too soon, you wouldn't want it too soon because it's perfect, right? So the thing is again, you know, whether it's loved ones, like I just saw your comment, Sandra, well, it's loved ones that are frustrating you and holding you back. You can be so right in how you see things, and I have no doubt that you are so right in how you feel, and you're so justified in how you feel. But being right and justified is locking you into this vibration where that's all you're going to experience, because that's where your focus is. And so your loved ones have just as much power as you do to focus somewhere else. And if they don't want to, then that's their prerogative. You still can. And that is probably the best pathway for you to follow right now. And, I'm a firm believer, and I practice this myself in my own life. So just so you know, I'm not blowing smoke, is that often it is far easier to unconditionally love someone from afar, which means unconditionally love them for who they are and who they express themselves to be, but you do not have to engage. And once we understand that, our frustration levels drop, because we have no expectation that they're ever going to be any different. So until they want to show that. So, it's up to them to make the changes. It's not up to us to inspire those changes, because if we wait for that, it doesn't work. So there, I hope that's been a bit helpful. Not lecturing you, just really trying to shine some light to give you a different perspective and something new to consider.
I had a client today, very apropos, whose dilemma was apropos of this situation. She said she wanted to buy another property, and she was also living with her long-term boyfriend, but wanted to break up that relationship, which is something that was going on for a long time, that she knew it wasn't working, but had kept on because she felt that she could impact on it. So she said, I just got gazumped today. I heard the news. So gazumped, do you know what gazumped means?
No.
So she put a deposit on the house, and everything was going through, and at the last minute the seller found somebody else to buy her at a higher price, and so everything fell through. And she said, I'm devastated. I said, well, you know what? That's a blessing. And she looked at me. She said, why? I said, well, because if you had bought that house and moved into it, the boyfriend would have moved in with you, and you would have had more trouble getting him out. So you haven't got a new house yet, so you can clean up your relationship stuff, so that when you buy the next property, which you have to do within a certain time frame, because she has a mortgage agreement for the next 8 weeks or something, then that means that she clears out her life, she gets another place, and she can move clean into it.
Wow.
And she said, well, I never thought of that. She said, you're right. So that's a perfect example of how one disappointment,
yes,
it's a different framework for understanding why things happen and how things can happen outside of our so-called awareness.
Well, and it also speaks to the law of polarity, doesn't it? No matter what appears to be happening at the lower end of the spectrum, there's something equal and opposite to it. And we're so driven by what's happening to me. How can this be? This isn't fair. This isn't just. Why me? Why is this stuff always happening to me? That we're failing to see that there is a gift in it. We should be kind of trying to dive in and find the gift before we start becoming paralyzed. The event was a mere catalyst to get you from what you think to where you want to be. And we get stuck all the time on the catalyst. We don't bother looking for the gift. So yeah, everything is a gift if we can get our head around that one too.
Yeah. So we live in interesting times.
Don't we though? And it's pretty remarkable to think that we're here on the planet Earth, which is absolutely gorgeous, by the way. And it gives everyone the resources to think and play and do and be and all that good stuff. And that's where we need to keep our focus. And I'm very, very grateful. And I'm grateful because there are these universal laws out there that cause all this expansion and allow us to get more out of it every moment than we ever thought was possible. And I'm also very thankful that it affords us the attraction issue where our own energy will attract in specifically the perfect energy around us via the projections of other people. And,
Yes.
so that leads me to say thank you so much, Nina, for being in my reality. And thank you for your marvelous energy. I certainly appreciate you. And I've really, really enjoyed this interaction and this discussion with you today. We covered a lot of topics.
We did a lot of territory and things that are very important. And to all our viewers, we hope that you've been inspired by our little chat and sharing our wisdom and our experiences, which goes to show that, we're always growing and you're always growing, and it's important to share and inspire each other, which is what Virtual Vision is all about.
That's right. It is a platform where we learn most by sharing, and that's where it's at. Right?
So thank you.
We're all finding our way home, and we're all walking each other there. So
that's right.
Thanks so much for being with us today, and thanks again to Nina. We will be back next week. And for now, I want everyone to get out there and appreciate and enjoy your moms, whether they are in physical or non-physical. If they're in non-physical, they're but a thought away, and appreciate them and love them, and the universe will bend over backwards to give you signs that love and appreciation is actually reciprocated. They're all still very much a part of your lives. So having said that, goodbye this week, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
You have been listening to Virtual Vision FM.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, or contact us at our website www.virtualvisionfm.com.
We want to hear from you because you matter.
Virtual Vision FM.
Your platform to all things spiritual.